Hey out there, this is July 18th, 2015 in Northern California. It's just about 8:30 in the morning. And I wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff as usual. Current events, things are happening at an exponential rate, and this time was predicted and prophesied thousands of years ago that humanity would enter this period where the evil would grow exponentially and it would become wild, enraged at the knowledge, the clear and present knowledge that it was soon to be defeated. And we see that today. We have today, in the 21st century, we have humanity being run roughshod over by a collective of mentally ill money masters, acutely, chronically, seemingly hopelessly mentally ill overlords. The people that are making the decisions that we all have to live under, the ones that are shaping our culture. And we've got to fundamentally understand that until we get free from the money masters, we're not going to be free. Okay? Nobody's going to know freedom. Nobody's going to know security. Nobody's going to know prosperity. The fact is that humanity is inextricably interconnected, and we experience each other's joys and sorrows on an osmotic level. It's something that was built into the genome. It's like a failsafe that our creator, the master potter, whatever you want to think of the master designer as, because we've got to start from that standpoint to understand that we are created beings. And there's something fundamentally wrong with this being, this human being, that we have to experience woes that other creatures don't. And they've got no propensity to ever have to experience those things. They intuitively and instinctively run away from threats. And humanity has run headlong into the biggest threat we ever could, and that is trusting our overlords, trusting the money masters, the people that are creating the policies for us. They're trying to render humanity in their image and likeness. And these are a mentally ill gaggle of merciless thugs. And that is how humanity is being shaped, because humanity is constantly seeking for greater wisdom, greater intelligence, and trying to lift themselves up and to be all that they can be. And when our example of that is the presidents of the United States, for example, or the ultra wealthy out there, then you can understand how the entire culture, our entire civilization, our society is in a state of decay. We're all becoming decadent because our overlords are decadent. And so it's an inevitable scientific reality that this reality, this so-called reality, is nothing but a monumental charade being thrust and foisted upon humanity in the name of preserving the status quo, the establishment as we've known it for so long. And if you go back through history, you'll see it's the same old story over and over and over again. It all has to do with oppression, repression, persecution, dominating. And that's what we have. We have these same types, these same stereotypes, the same mentality, the same caliber of overlords today as we've had all through history. It's the same kind of people Jesus had to rant and rave about that we have to rant and rave about today. And we do have an obligation to rant and rave about them, because if you don't, you lose that right. You go the way of China or some other country where free speech is subjugated and suppressed. And we've got to avoid that in this country at all costs. So it's very important that everybody out there just be true to yourself. That's all I'm recommending. And be who you really want to be. Don't be the person you've told you want to be, filled with fear and insecurity and subjugated and marginalized, okay? Be all that you can be in the sight of your Creator, your divine parents, God Almighty, whatever you want to call it, that higher power, the master designer. Whatever your beliefs are, we've got to start from the standpoint that we are created beings, in which case we are owned by the one that gave us life and breath, gave us our senses. And we are beholden only to that one, that source. That's the only right perspective, that's the only right reality, the only right paradigm we should embrace. We need not be feeling fearful and reverent toward our overlords on this earth. And we've got to get off this whole way of thinking, because I see it permeates people I respect and admire greatly, and I know have great intelligence. But it's just like that with anybody, this idiot savant phenomenon where, you know, you're really smart, really smart, smarter than everybody else maybe in one arena. But in another area, in a little aspect of that arena, you go off course and you don't understand the big picture. But what this all comes down to is money. That money is literally to be seen as the God of this world. And when we come from that understanding, then we can cut through all the minutia of trying to understand, well, what's this problem about? What's that problem about? Listen, none of us will ever know reality until we're free from the God of money, which is the God of this world, and all the minions underneath that represent the God of this world. And a lot of them unwittingly do it. They don't realize they're serving the beast system. They don't realize they're serving Satan. But many of us that are involved in the system realize it, but it's by necessity to trying to survive. We are part of it just on a superficial level. And that's how I would describe my involvement, and many other people that are awake out there that understand fundamentally our reality is going to be 180 degrees different from this reality that we've been taught and told to trust in, to believe in as the reality, that it's common sense, that it's practical, that it's pragmatic to trust in the system. And that, look, no matter what anybody says, some crazy idealist, it all makes sense. That, you know, that the schools and the universities all make sense what they're teaching, the curriculum and the things that they put no relevance on that they don't teach at the schools and the universities. This is all for a reason, and it all makes sense. Just listen to us. Just be trained the way we want you to be trained. And, you know, ultimately you've got to understand that no matter what you do for these people, they're insane at the top. And they're not going to be happy because they are living in an unreality. These are people that behave in an inhuman manner. They do things that most of us find not only highly objectionable, but we wouldn't participate in for any amount of money, for any worldly gain. We would not do the things these people do willingly. And yes, there's a lot of money involved. And we could say, well, they're doing it for the money. But, you know, you've also understand your soul is involved. Your conscience, your integrity, your honor. Everything that's good and right and noble is out the window too. So you understand, for this temporal thing, because we all know that our human existence is a temporary phenomenon and that it could be over at any time for any one of us. So these people are living in a very, very bad zone. And they've got a lot of people convinced that this very, very bad zone is safe and secure. And this is where you should go for prosperity. This is where you should go for security. It's your way out of fear. This is the way to freedom. It's all about financial freedom, the God of this world, and serving him well, and this will bring you happiness. But ultimately, the God of this world is a murderer and a liar. We've got to understand that Satan, the way that Jesus put it, and the money, the God of this world, are one and the same, because this is the operation. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. We've got to understand how roundly and profoundly humanity is duped, and to the nth degree. And when you understand that the entire so-called reality is nothing but a monumental charade, it's a pseudo-reality that has been conjured up by a group of Satanists. Essentially, that's it. A lot of these people are open Satan worshipers, and they're genocidal maniacs. It's the same kind of Hitler mentality we see today that we saw, back in the day, the 30s and 40s, when Hitler's reign was in place. Democratically elected guy. And how did he get these people to go along? Because they're sick. We're looking up to these people. We think, well, if they say it's okay and I trust them, they've got all the power, then it's safe, I go along with them. And we see that same thing happening today. And the black hats within governments around the world, they're fascists. They're working with private interests like the Bilderberg Group, all the ultra wealthy people, the money printing class. You understand, there's no more powerful class than the money printing class, who have the copyright to the money. So they're working in a fascistic manner to subjugate humanity, and they've got a plan in place because they know their other plans are going to fail. Their plans of destroying people financially always fail. Oppression always comes to a head. People figure it out. They get tired of being oppressed. They not only get scared, but they get angry, and they go out in the streets and they demand justice, and they know just what they're asking for. They're asking for things like sound currency in an unsound system. We say we're tired of our currency being deflated, being debased in the last 50 years to the tune of 95% in the overall aggregate, the cost price index, or the market basket of goods, as you might say. But that in America is the case. And they're after that last few percentage points. They got to push and push and push and play out this Ponzi scheme like there's really any hope that we're going to find a rational way out of this. That suddenly, the disparity between the haves and have-nots, the rich and the poor, is suddenly going to start closing. We're going to close that gap somehow. And we're going to turn it around, and suddenly poverty is going to stop in its tracks, and everybody's suddenly going to start, experiencing the prosperity that is rightfully theirs. No, it's not going to happen. So the only plan these people have up their sleeves is something of a biblical proportion. So you got to understand, they're talking about genocide on an unthinkable level, and that is consistent with what is written in Scripture about the period of time, the latter days, right before the return of Jesus, which is this period that so many people that have devoted their lives to the study of Bible prophecy believe we're living in. We're basically down to the wire. If you read the last chapter in the book of Daniel, there's only 12 chapters, very short book, and the 12th chapter is very short, but you will start to understand what I'm talking about and what so many others are talking about. If you read about the things Jesus talked about, the warning signs, right before the end of the age is how he put it. At the period of time before he returned, there'd be this trouble, these trials and tribulations. There'd be this decadent period when men, all went to their own thinking and did what was right in